did Peter fail? And I think there's some lessons for us that we can all benefit so that we too won't fail like Peter. Let's read. Verse 31, Simon, Simon, look out, Satan has asked to sift you like wheat, but I've prayed for you, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. Lord, he told them, I'm ready to go with you both to prison and to death. I tell you, Peter, he said, the rooster will not crow today until you deny me, you deny 3 times that you know me. Now this is a very interesting story because there's a lot of stuff going on here. Matter of fact, Jesus suggests they just had this big argument who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom. So to me, the kind of arrogance was already up. The problem here with Peter was arrogance. But let's not be so hard on Peter, because we too can be arrogant. We may not be kind of boisterous with it, but we too can be arrogant. How was Peter arrogant? This way. Let's unpack this. First and foremost, notice what he says. Jesus says, you know, Satan is asked to have you. In other words, in other gospels, he tells Peter, you're going to deny me, Peter. And he says, he told them, I'm ready to go with you both into prison and to death. So Luke's accounting of this, of course, Peter's response is after Jesus tells him, you're going to deny me. Peter says, I'm not going to deny you. Now, in the other gospels accounting, he goes even further. He says, they may, meaning the other disciples may deny you, but I won't. I'll fight to the death for you. That's an arrogant statement. Let's unpack this for a moment. Think about this. Who is telling Peter this? In other words, it's not like it was John or Thomas or Bartholomew. It was Jesus. So the question is, why is Peter arguing with Jesus? Especially over something so serious. By the way, this wasn't some, everyday walk, or, this was one of the most solemn moments. That was Peter's first mistake. Oftentimes when we fall into sin, some people are shocked, right? How could I have fallen into sin? How could I have committed adultery? How could I have committed fornication? How could I have done whatever? Question is, how could you not? Peter's going to be shocked when he fails. But right here, Peter, in other words, his failures is right now hours before in the making. And that's why I said we shouldn't be so, cocky ourselves. You see, the problem is that when we sin, we oftentimes are looking at the wrong timeline here. Our sin oftentimes began way before the act. Here Jesus, the Son of God, the Messiah, whom Peter and him acknowledge, is telling Peter he's going to fail. Peter argues with him. There was a parable Jesus told about 2 men who went up to the temple to pray, the Pharisee and the tax collector. The Pharisee prayed that I am righteous, Lord. I give tithes. I fast twice a week. And then he says, I'm not like this. I'm not even like this tax collector, this sinner here. See, the arrogance of it. Peter, in a sense, was kind of doing this very moment. I am not going to deny you, Jesus. I am not like the others. I will fight to the death to you. Even go to jail, even to, But there was arrogance. Maybe Peter should have said, Lord, you're saying this to me. I don't want to fail you. How can I not do this? Instead, he was arrogant. Well, 1 minute, he gets 2 more tries. Look at verse number 40. Verse 39. I'm going to start reading verse 39. He went out and he made his way as usual to the Mount of Olives. and the disciples followed him. He reached a place. He told them, pray that you may not enter into temptation. Now, notice this, Peter, this is your second chance. Pray that you don't enter into temptation. What did Peter and them do? Well, here it is what Peter and them did. Look down at verse number 46. Now, verse 45. When he got up from prayer, this is Jesus, he came to his disciples and he found them sleeping, exhausted from grief. He says, why are you sleeping? He asked them, get up and pray so that you won't enter into temptation. See, Peter, in his arrogance, kept missing these lifelines. Like I say, let's not be too hardy. We do the same thing. And I'll explain this in a moment. Let's look at Peter's failure, because this particular one here is most stunning. And I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to verse 54. Let's read. And they seized him and led him away and brought him to the high priest's house. Meanwhile, Peter was following at a distance. Now remember, he didn't pray twice. He didn't heed Jesus. Verse 55, they lit a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, and Peter sat among them. And when Jesus saw and when the servant saw him sitting in the firelight and looked closely at him, she said, this man was with him too. But he denied it. Woman, I don't know him. After a little while, someone else saw him and said, you are one of them too. Man, I am not, Peter said. But look at this. About an hour later, another kept insisting this man certainly was with him, since he is a Galilean. Alright, but look at this. Verse 60. But Peter said, man, I don't know what you are talking about. Immediately while he was still speaking, the rooster crowed. Then the Lord turned and looked at Peter. So Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he said to him, before the rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times. And he went out and he wept bitterly. You see, one of the problems here is utterly, and it is, you kind of, your heart breaks for Peter, but you also got to say, well, Peter, you deserve this because you ignored Jesus in your arrogancy. And of course, this is even more that he did this in front of the Lord. He denied the Lord to his face. Jesus turned and looked at him. We're told by history and tradition that Peter never forgave himself for this, that upon his death he requested that he would be crucified upside down, so because he felt worthy to be crucified in the same manner of his Lord. We don't know if this story is true, but we certainly can understand how he could be plagued with the guilt. You see, even today sometimes, are we not sometimes just as cocky? In other words, we have the word of the Lord. Are we heeding the word of the Lord? Are we in wisdom avoiding sin? You know, when the Bible tells us, don't go down that road or you will sin. Oh no, I can handle it. I can overcome it. I can stand against it, when God says don't. Are we cocky not to heed the words of God that are left to us? You see, as I said, oftentimes the act of sin starts way back. The process that led us to the act of sin starts way back, and we don't even see that. And just with Peter, when Peter was told by the Lord himself, why would he argue, right? But that led to his fall. So we have these examples that we can follow that won't lead to our failure and that won't lead to our fall. Now, Peter's faith didn't fail as the Lord prayed, but he failed in that he denied the Lord, and especially when he didn't have to. Look, guys, that is this morning's word. Let's take heed and follow the word of the Lord. Look, the next time I'll see you then.